Velra had spent her entire life surrounded by books. As a young archivist in the Grand Library of the Galactic Concord, she had read stories from 200 different species. She had studied the rise and fall of empires. She had memorized the names of heroes who had shaped the galaxy. But nothing had prepared her for what she found in the forbidden section that night. The book was old, older than anything she had ever touched. Its pages were made of a material she did not recognize, and the words were written in a language that should not have existed. It took her 3 days to translate the first page. When she finally understood what she was reading, her hands began to shake. It was a children's story, a fable about creatures called humans. The story spoke of beings who walked on 2 legs like many species did, but who carried something different in their hearts. They were not the strongest in the galaxy. They were not the fastest or the smartest, but they had something that made other species both love and fear them. They would fight wars for strangers. They would give their lives for people they had never met. They believed in things like honor and sacrifice, concepts that most species only pretended to understand. Velra read the story 5 times. Then she went looking for more. She found fragments hidden throughout the library, old records that had been misfiled, ancient reports that had been marked for destruction but somehow survived. Each piece told the same impossible tale. Humans had been real. They had walked among the stars thousands of years ago, and then they had simply vanished. Most scholars laughed at her when she asked about them. They called humans a myth, a composite legend created from the best traits of many species. No civilization could truly be so recklessly compassionate, they said. No species would genuinely sacrifice themselves for others without expecting something in return. It went against every law of survival, but Velra could not stop searching. The galaxy she lived in was not a peaceful one. The Galactic Concord had existed for 12,000 years, but it had grown weak and divided. Species fought over resources. Alliances crumbled over small disagreements. And now something far worse had arrived. The Drakevith Dominion had come from the edge of the galaxy. No one knew where they originated or why they had started their conquest. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They did not want slaves or tribute. They simply destroyed everything in their path. World after world had fallen to their fleets. The Concord had sent its combined military to stop them 3 times. And 3 times the Concord had been defeated. Now the Dominion was coming for Zara Prime, Velra's home. The evacuation had already begun. Ships filled the sky day and night, carrying families to distant colonies that might be safe for a few more months. Velra watched them go and felt something break inside her chest. She had grown up in the shadow of the Grand Library. She had played in its gardens as a child. She had fallen in love with knowledge within its ancient walls. And soon it would all be Ashdod. She was packing her few belongings when Elder Sarath called for her. Sarath had been her mentor since she first arrived at the library. He was old beyond counting, his scales faded to pale gray, his eyes clouded with age. Everyone said he would not survive the evacuation. His body was too weak for the stress of space travel. He had accepted this truth with the calm dignity that had defined his entire life. When Velra entered his chamber, she found him lying on his bed, barely able to lift his head, but his eyes were clear, and his voice was stronger than it had been in months. "You have been searching for the humans," he said. It was not a question. Velra nodded slowly. "The other scholars say they are just myths. The other scholars are fools." Sarath coughed weakly. "Or liars. Sometimes both." He reached beneath his pillow and pulled out a small data crystal. It glowed faintly in the dim light of his room. "The stories are not fables, child. They are history. Real history. The Concord erased them from our records 12,000 years ago." Pressed the crystal into her hand. "We erased them because we were ashamed of what we did to them." Velra stared at the crystal. "What did we do? We betrayed them. We feared their power, their influence, the way other species looked at them with hope instead of looking at us. So we turned on them. We cast them out." Sorath's voice grew weaker. "They could have destroyed us. They had the strength. But they chose exile instead. They simply left. Left to where? Soroth closed his eyes. The crystal contains coordinates. A place in dead space called the Sanctuary. The humans went there, and they never came back. He gripped her arm with surprising strength. Find them, Velra. If anyone can stop what is coming, it is them. If the legends are even half true, they might still help us. Even after everything we did, why would they help us? After we betrayed them, Soroth smiled sadly, because that is what humans do. That is what made them terrifying. They help because they cannot stop themselves from helping. It is in their nature, like breathing. He died an hour later, still smiling. Valra stood at his bedside for a long time, holding the crystal and thinking about everything she had learned. The evacuation ships were calling for final boarding. Her family was waiting for her at the spaceport. The smart thing to do was to run, to hide, to hope the Dominion would be satisfied with the Zara Prime and stop their advance. But Kalra had never been very good at being smart. She stole a scout ship from the library's private dock. It was old and slow, but it was fast enough to reach the coordinates on the crystal. As she broke through the atmosphere and left her dying world behind, she sent a single message to her brother. I am going to find the humans. I am going to bring back our legends. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of silence and darkness and growing doubt. What if Soroth had been wrong? What if the humans had died out long ago? What if they had changed, become something cruel and vengeful after thousands of years of exile? When she finally arrived at the coordinates, she found nothing. Empty space. No planets, no stations, no ships. Just the cold void between stars. She sat in her pilot chair and felt tears running down her face. She had given up everything for a fairy tale. Her family, her home, her life. And there was nothing here. Then her sensors detected something. A power signature directly ahead. Massive beyond anything she had ever seen. It had been there the whole time, hidden somehow. Waiting, her ship lurched as an invisible force took hold of it, pulling her forward into the darkness, and then a voice spoke through her communications system. It spoke in perfect Thesaron, her own language, spoken with an accent that had not been heard in 12,000 years. Oh, little archivist. We have been waiting a very long time for someone to come looking. The darkness ahead began to glow with lights. Thousands of them. Millions. Velra realized she was not looking at empty space. She was looking at a fleet. They thought humans were legends until 10,000. Human dreadnoughts filled the sky. Part 2, the Sanctuary. The lights grew brighter as Velra's ship was pulled deeper into the void. What she had thought was empty space was actually something else entirely. A fold in space itself, a hidden pocket of reality where an entire civilization had been waiting in silence. Her ship passed through what felt like a curtain of energy, and suddenly she could see everything. The station was larger than any moon. It hung in the center of a vast sphere of ships, thousands of vessels, arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Each ship was massive, built on a scale that made even the Dominion's warships look like toys. And all of them were pointed outward, as if protecting the station from every possible direction. Velra's hands trembled on her controls. She had found them. The legends were real. Her ship was guided into a landing bay that could have held 100 vessels her size. When the doors sealed behind her and atmosphere filled the chamber, she sat in her pilot seat for a long moment, afraid to move. What would she find when she stepped outside? What had 12,000 years of exile turned these people into? The airlock opened with a soft hiss. A woman stood waiting for her. She looked almost like a Thesaurian, walking on 2 legs with 2 arms, but her skin was smooth instead of scaled. Her eyes were a strange, warm brown color that Velra had never seen before. She wore a simple uniform with a symbol on her chest that meant nothing to Velra, but clearly carried great importance. My name is Elena Vasquez, the woman said. Her voice was calm and kind. I am the commander of this station. You have traveled a very long way, young archivist. You must have many questions. Velra found her voice somehow. You speak my language. We speak all languages. Alina smiled. We have had a lot of time to learn. She led Velra through corridors that were clean and bright, past windows that looked out on gardens filled with plants Velra did not recognize. Other humans walked past them, nodding politely, showing no surprise at seeing an alien in their midst. Children ran through the halls, laughing and playing games that seemed strange but familiar at the same time. It was nothing like what Velra had expected. There was no anger here, no sense of bitterness or rage. The humans seemed peaceful, happy even. I do not understand, Velra said. Your people were betrayed, exiled. You should hate us. Lena stopped walking and turned to face her. Her expression was thoughtful, not angry.
How?
We did hate you. For a very long time, we burned with that hatred. She started walking again. But hatred is a fire that consumes the one who holds it. Our ancestors made a choice many generations ago. They decided that when we returned to the galaxy, it would not be for revenge. It would be because we were needed. And if you were never needed, then we would never return, Alina shrugged. Some things are more important than settling old wounds. She brought Velra to a large room filled with screens and displays. Maps of the galaxy covered every wall, marked with symbols and notations in the human language. Velra saw her own world on one of the maps. It was circled in red. We know why you have come, Alina said. We have been watching the Dominions advance. We have been watching for a long time. Then why have you not stopped them? Velra felt anger rising in her chest. You have all these ships, all this power. Millions have died while you sat here doing nothing. Alina did not flinch from her anger. We have not done nothing. We have stopped plagues from spreading to populated worlds. We have redirected asteroids that would have destroyed colonies. We have prevented genocides that no one else knew were coming. She paused. We have done these things in secret because we were not sure the galaxy was ready to know we still existed. People are dying right now. My world is dying, I know. Lena's voice was heavy with sorrow. And that is why you are here. That is why we did not turn you away. She led Velra to a great chamber where hundreds of humans had gathered. They sat in rising rows of seats, all facing a central platform where several older humans stood together. This was their council, Velra realized. The leaders of all humanity. The debate had clearly been going on for some time. Voices rose and fell, some angry, some calm, all passionate. The Concord does not deserve our help, one voice called out. Let them face the consequences of their ancestors' choices. Should children pay for the sins of their grandparents? Another responded. The people dying today did nothing to us. We swore an oath. We promised we would not interfere unless we were asked. She is asking. This young one came looking for us. That is enough. Velra listened to them argue and felt hope draining from her heart. They were divided. They would talk while her world burned. Then an old man stood up from the council platform. He moved slowly, his body bent with age. But when he spoke, every other voice fell silent. My name is Chen, he said. I have served this fleet for longer than most of you have been alive. I remember the stories my grandfather told me about Earth, the world we left behind. He said that humans were not defined by what we lost. We were defined by what we chose to protect. He turned to look at Velra. His eyes were tired but kind. Young one, tell me about your world. Tell me about your people. Velra did not know what to say. She reached into her bag and pulled out the small recording device she always carried. She had not planned to use it. She had simply grabbed it out of habit. When she fled her home, she activated it. The chamber filled with the sound of children singing. It was a recording she had made weeks ago at a school near the library. The children were singing an old Thessaran song about hope and starlight. Their voices were pure and sweet, filled with innocence. The humans listened in silence. When the recording ended, Admiral Chen wiped something from his eyes. He turned to face the council. Begin the activation sequence, he said. All fleets. Every ship we have. A murmur ran through the chamber. Valra's heart began to pound. How many ships is that? She asked. Elena Vasquez appeared beside her. She put a hand on Velra's shoulder and smiled, but there was something sad in her expression. Enough, she said. Throughout the hidden station, lights began to change from blue to gold. Velra felt the floor vibrate beneath. Her feet, as engines that had been silent for centuries, roared to life. And on 10,000 ships, crews who had waited their entire lives for this moment took their positions and prepared to do what humans had always done. They prepared to help. They thought humans were legends until 10,000. Human dreadnoughts filled the sky. Part 3. The return Thessera Prime was burning. From orbit, the planet looked like a wounded animal. Great clouds of smoke rose from its cities. Fires spread across its forests. The blue oceans that Velra had swum in as a child now reflected the orange glow of destruction. The Drakevith Dominion fleet hung above it all like a swarm of metal insects. 2,000 warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one eager to finish what they had started. They had broken through the orbital defenses in less than an hour. Now, they were simply enjoying themselves. Chancellor Marathan stood on the bridge of the last Thesseran defense station. Her scales were singed, her uniform torn, but her voice was steady as she broadcast her final message to the galaxy. This is the Zara Prime calling all Concord worlds. We are fallen. Our fleet is destroyed. Our cities are burning. Remember us. Remember what you allowed to happen. And may your cowardice haunt your children's children. No response came. The Concord had abandoned them, but not everyone had given up. 300 ships had gathered at the edge of the system. They were not military vessels. They were cargo haulers and passenger liners, mining ships, and scientific craft. Their crews were not soldiers. They were ordinary people who had refused to run any further. Among them was a small fighter craft piloted by Casvel, Velra's older brother. He had received her message 3 days ago. He had not believed her words about humans and legends, but he had believed in his sister, and so he had stayed to fight while others fled. All vessels, this is Casvel. His voice was calm despite the fear in his heart. We cannot win this battle. We all know this. But we can show the Dominion that the Thessera does not die quietly. We can make them remember us. The ragged fleet moved forward. 300 ships against 2,000. It was not a battle. It was a statement. On the Dominion command ship, Overlord Desic watched the tiny fleet approach and laughed. He was tall for his species, with dark chitin armor that had never been scratched in combat. He had conquered 40 worlds. He had never known defeat. Look at them, he said to his officers. Still hoping for salvation? Still believing in their fairy tales? He activated the fleet-wide communication channel. Defenders of the Thessera, your legends have abandoned you. Your gods have turned away. There is no one coming to save you. There never was. He ordered the planetary bombardment to continue. Not strategic targets. Population centers. Schools and hospitals. Places where the most people would die the most painfully. Casvel gritted his teeth and pushed his throttle forward. If he was going to die, he would die fighting. Then space itself began to tear apart. The first rupture appeared directly between the two fleets. A hole in reality, glowing with golden light. Then another appeared. And another. And another. Casvel's instruments went wild. Warning lights flashed across his console. His computer could not process what it was seeing. What is happening? Someone screamed over the communications channel. 10,000 points of light now burned in the void. 10,000 doorways to somewhere else. And through each one, something massive was emerging. Ships, but not like any ships the galaxy had ever seen. Each one was the size of a small moon. Their hulls were dark metal that seemed to drink in the light of the stars. Their engines burned with the same golden glow as the ruptures they had emerged from. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out across the system in patterns that spoke of absolute precision and absolute confidence. 10,000 dreadnoughts, an armada that could have conquered the entire galaxy, and they had appeared from nowhere, from legend, from myth. The lead ship broadcast on all frequencies. In every language known to the Concord, the The voice that spoke was old and tired and filled with something that sounded almost like sorrow. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Human Fleet. We remember our promise. We are here." Silence fell across the battlefield. Every weapon stopped firing. Every ship hung motionless in space. Then a young communications officer, on one of the Concorde observation stations, spoke the words that would echo through history. "Legends. They are real." Caswell stared at his view screen. He thought of his sister, of her crazy theories and forbidden books. He thought of all the times he had mocked her beliefs. "Velra," he whispered, "you actually did it." On the Dominion command ship, Overlord Desic felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. It crawled up his spine like ice water. He pushed it down with rage. "Legends can bleed," he snarled. "Legends can die. All ships, engage the human fleet. Destroy them." The Dominion fleet turned away from the burning planet and charged toward the impossible armada. 2,000 ships against 10,000, but the sect did not care about the odds. He had never retreated. He would not start now. Admiral Chen watched them come. His officers stood ready at their stations, waiting for the order to fire. The order did not come. "Weapons hold," Chen said. "Do not fire first. I repeat, do not fire. Let them come to us." His first officer stared at him. "Admiral, they are attacking. We must defend ourselves." "We will defend ourselves, but we will not throw the first blow." Chun's voice was firm. "There has been enough death today. If more must follow, let the record show that we did not start it." The Dominion ships opened fire. Thousands of weapons hurled death across the void. Energy beams and missiles and kinetic rounds, enough firepower to crack a planet in half. The human shields flared gold as they absorbed the assault. Not a single human ship fired back. On her view screen in the sanctuary, Velra watched with Alina beside her. "I do not understand," Velra said. "Why are they not fighting?" Elena's expression was unreadable. "Because destroying the Dominion is not why we came. Ending the destruction is. There is a difference." The human fleet began to move, but not to attack. The Dreadnoughts swept forward in coordinated waves, their shields absorbing everything the Dominion threw at them. And as they closed the distance, smaller craft launched from their bays. Hundreds of precise surgical teams, each one targeting a specific Dominion vessel. They did not destroy the enemy ships, they disabled them. Weapons systems went dark. Engines failed. Shield generators burned out. One by one, the Dominion warships fell silent, intact but helpless. Within 2 hours, it was over. 2,000 Dominion ships drifted in space, unable to fight, unable to flee. Not a single one had been destroyed. Not a single crew had been killed. Admiral Chen looked at the field of disabled ships and felt the weight of what came next, settling on his shoulders. Winning the battle had been the easy part. Now came the hard part. Now he had to try to win the peace. He stood from his command chair and straightened his uniform. "Prepare my shuttle," he said. "I am going to speak with Overlord Desic." "Sir, that is extremely dangerous." "He tried to kill us all." "Yes." Chen smiled tiredly. "And now I am going to offer him something better than death. Something much harder to accept." He walked toward the shuttle bay alone, carrying no weapons, wearing no armor, carrying only hope. They thought humans were legends, until 10,000 human dreadnoughts filled the sky part. 4. The human Wade Admiral Chen's shuttle crossed the silent battlefield alone. Around it drifted the disabled hulks of the Dominion fleet. It's dark and quiet, their crews trapped inside vessels that could no longer fight or flee. The human dreadnoughts held position at a respectful distance, their weapons still cold, their shields still raised. Chen looked out the viewport at the carnage that had not happened. 2 hours ago, this space could have been filled with debris and bodies. Instead, it was filled with possibility. His shuttle approached the Dominion command ship. It was the largest vessel in the enemy fleet, covered in the scars of 100 conquests. Someone had painted kill markings along its hull. 40 worlds reduced to symbols on metal. The shuttle bay doors opened reluctantly, grinding against damaged mechanisms. Chen landed his craft and stepped out into the cold air of the Dominion ship. Dozens of weapons immediately pointed at his chest. He raised his empty hands and smiled. "I am unarmed," he said. "I have come to speak with Overlord Desic. I believe we have much to discuss." The Drakevith soldiers stared at him with confusion and rage. They had never seen an enemy walk willingly into their grasp. They did not know how to respond to someone who showed no fear. "Bring him," the voice echoed through the bay. The soldiers parted, and Chen walked between them toward the command bridge. He studied the Drakevith as he passed. They were tall and covered in natural armor, built for war by evolution itself. But he saw something else in their eyes, something that looked almost like exhaustion. Overlord Desic waited on his throne. He had not moved since the battle ended. His clawed hands gripped the armrests hard enough to crack the metal. His eyes burned with hatred. "You have made a mistake, human." His voice was a low growl. "Should have destroyed us when you had the chance. Now you stand in my power." Chen stopped a few steps from the throne. He did not bow or show any sign of submission. He simply stood and met Desic's gaze as an equal. "I did not come here as a conqueror," Chen said. "I came here to understand." "Understand what?" "We are your enemies. You would have killed everyone on that planet below." "Yes, you would have." Jean's voice remained calm. "But I want to know why." "I have studied your conquests. 40 worlds destroyed, billions dead. No resources, no slaves, no territory. You simply kill and move on." He tilted his head. "That is not conquest. That is something else." Desic's claws dug deeper into his throne. "You know nothing about us. I know that your homeworld was destroyed 400 years ago. A stellar event that no one could have predicted or prevented. I know that your species became refugees, wandering the galaxy begging for help." Chen's voice softened. "I know that no one helped you." The change in Desic was subtle, but unmistakable. His rigid posture shifted. Something flickered in his eyes that was not rage. "We asked for sanctuary," he said quietly. "World after world, species after species. They all turned us away. They called us parasites, invaders. They said we would take what was theirs." His voice grew bitter. "So we decided to become what they already believed we were." Chen nodded slowly. "Could not find a home. So you decided no one else deserved one either." "They showed us no mercy. Why should we show them any? Because mercy is not about what others deserve. It is about what kind of people we choose to be." Desic laughed harshly. "Pretty words, easy for you to say. Your people have power. You have ships and weapons and a hidden fortress. You have never been homeless and hungry and despised. We have been all of those things." Chen stepped closer. 12,000 years ago, humanity was betrayed by the same galaxy that rejected you. We were exiled to die in the darkness between stars. We lost our homeworld, our history, our place among the stars. He paused. "We could have become exactly what you became. Destroyers. Avengers. We almost did. What stopped you?" Chen was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with old pain. "My ancestors looked at the path of revenge and saw where it ended. They saw that destroying others would not bring back what we had lost. It would only destroy what we had left." He reached into his pocket slowly, making sure the guards could see his movements. He pulled out a small device and activated it. Images appeared in the air between them. Human history, the wars they had fought among themselves, the genocides they had committed. It's the weapons they had built that could crack worlds like eggs. It's the darkness that lived in human hearts. "We have been monsters, the sick. The worst monsters the universe has ever seen. We have done things that would make your conquests look like children's games." Chen's voice was steady, but we learned. We are still learning. Every day we choose to be something better than what we were. Your people can make that choice too. Desic stared at the images of human atrocity. He had thought he knew cruelty. He had thought the Drakevith had invented suffering. But these humans had walked that path before him and come out the other side. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "I want to offer you what no one else offered, what you should have been given 400 years ago. Chen deactivated the device and met Thesik's eyes. I want to offer you a home. Before the Sith could respond, movement exploded from behind the throne. His second-in-command, a scarred warrior named Vectus, lunged forward with a blade drawn. Traitor, Vectus screamed. You would listen to our enemy? You would accept charity from those who humiliated us? The blade caught Chen in the shoulder. He fell backward, blood spreading across his uniform. Guards rushed forward, but Vectus was already standing over the wounded human, ready to deliver the killing blow. Kill him. Kill all of them. We are Drakefeth. Do not surrender. We do not accept pity. Thesik moved faster than anyone expected. His clawed hand closed around Vectus's throat and lifted him off the ground. No more, Thesik said. Vectus struggled in his grip. You are weak. You are betraying everything we stand for. Everything we stand for has brought us nothing but death, and theirs and ours. Thesik looked down at Chen, who was clutching his wounded shoulder, but still conscious. This human walked into my ship alone. Unarmed, he could have killed us all from a distance, but instead he came to talk, came to offer something other than destruction. He threw Vectus to the ground. When was the last time anyone offered us anything but hatred? The bridge was silent. Every Drakefith stood frozen, watching their overlord make a choice that would define their entire species. Thesik extended his hand to Chen. Tell me about this home you offer, he said. Chen took his hand and let the overlord help him to his feet. Blood still flowed from his wound, but he was smiling. Let me show you, he said. And in that moment, surrounded by enemies who had chosen to become something else, humanity proved that the old stories were true. The legends had returned, not with vengeance. Not with fire, with an open hand. They thought humans were legends until 10,000 human dreadnoughts filled the sky. Part 5. Legends reborn, the news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. The humans had returned. The legends were real, and they had done something impossible. They had stopped the Dominion without, destroying it on every world with access to communications. Beings of every species watched the images from the Sara Prime. They saw the 10,000 dreadnoughts hanging in space like guardian angels. They saw the disabled Dominion fleet intact and alive. They saw Admiral Chen walking off the enemy command ship with Overlord. Thesik beside him, the Galactic Concord fell into chaos. Political leaders who had spent their careers denying human existence suddenly scrambled to rewrite history. Ambassadors who had refused to send aid to the Sara Prime now begged for an audience with the returned fleet. Ancient families who had built their power on the betrayal of humanity 12,000 years ago trembled behind locked doors. Admiral Chen addressed the Concord Council 3 days after the battle. He stood before them with his arm in a sling, his wounds still healing. Alina Vasquez stood beside him. Behind them, visible through the great windows of the council chamber, human ships patrolled the skies of the Concord capital. We do not want apologies, Chen said. His voice was calm, but carried to every corner of the room. We do not want territory or tribute. We do not want revenge for what was done to our ancestors. He paused and looked at the assembled leaders. We want something much harder than any of those things. We want you to become the galaxy you always pretended to be. A Concord senator rose to speak. And if we refuse, will you conquer us? Force us to change? Chen shook his head. We will leave. We will return to the sanctuary and close our doors forever. We will not force anyone to be better than they choose to be. His voice hardened slightly. But we will remember. And we will tell our children what we found when we came back to the stars. We will tell them that the galaxy had not changed at all. The senator sat down without another word. Far from the political chaos, another kind of change was taking place. The human fleet had brought more than warships to the Sara Prime. Medical vessels descended on the wounded world, carrying doctors and supplies and technology that could heal injuries thought to be fatal. Construction ships began clearing debris and laying foundations for new buildings. Agricultural vessels carried seeds for crops that could grow in damaged soil and on a quiet world in human-protected space. The Drakefith found something they had not known for 400 years. Peace. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans and green forests. mountains that touched the clouds and valleys filled with flowers. It had been terraformed by human scientists over centuries, prepared for a people who had not yet arrived. A gift held in trust for someone who might need it. Overlord. Vesic stood on the shore of an alien sea and let the waves wash over his feet. He had never felt sand before. He had never heard the sound of water that was not recycled through ship systems. He had never smelled air that did not carry the scent of metal and blood. Why? He asked. Admiral Chen stood beside him, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors neither of them had words for.
Why what?
Why give us this? After everything we did, the worlds we destroyed, the lives we took, why would you help us? Chen was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft with old grief. Because someone should have helped you before you became what you were. We are sorry that no one did. Turn to look at Vesic. This is not a reward. It is not forgiveness. It is a second chance. What you do with it is up to you. Vesic felt something wet on his face. It took him a moment to realize he was crying. He had not cried since he was a child, since he watched his family die in the destruction of his homeworld. I only know how to destroy, then learn. Chen smiled. We will teach you. That is what we do. Months passed. The galaxy slowly transformed. Velra became the first non-human ambassador to the sanctuary. She walked the halls where humanity had waited for 12,000 years and learned their true history. Not the myths. Not the legends. The real story of a people who had made terrible mistakes and fought every day to make better choices. She wrote it all down. Every triumph and every failure. Every moment of darkness and every spark of light. She carried these stories back to the Sara Prime and shared them with the children who had survived the attack in the rebuilt schools of her homeworld. Velra sat with young students and told them about the humans. She told them about Admiral Chen and Elena Vasquez. She told them about the sanctuary and the promise that humanity had kept for 12,000 years. She told them about Overlord Vesic and the Drakeveth, who had become monsters because no one showed them kindness, and who were learning to become something else. Someone finally did. She told them the truth that the old legends only hinted at. Humans were not special because they were strong. They were not special because they were smart or brave or powerful. They were special because they never stopped trying to be better than they were. They failed constantly. They made mistakes that cost lives and worlds, but they kept trying. They kept reaching for something beyond their grasp. They kept believing that tomorrow could be different from today. That was the real human magic. Not their ships or their weapons or their technology, their stubborn, impossible hope. Years later, Velra stood in the garden of the rebuilt Grand Library of the Sara Prime. She was older now, her scales silvered with age, her eyes wise with everything she had seen. Around her, children played beneath trees that human engineers had helped plant. A young girl approached her. She was curious and bright, full of the questions that young people always carry. Ambassador Velra, are the humans really as kind as the stories say? Velra knelt down to look the child in the eyes. She thought about everything she had witnessed. The return of the fleet, the mercy shown to enemies, the second chance given to those who had earned nothing but destruction. No, little one, she said softly. The stories never did them justice. Through the window, she could see a single human ship passing overhead. Not a dreadnought. Not a warship. A medical vessel, carrying supplies to a distant world in need. It was painted white with a simple symbol on its hull, a red cross, an ancient human sign of healing. The children saw it too. They waved their small hands at the sky, high above. The ship dipped its lights in greeting, and somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, 10,000 dreadnoughts kept watch over a galaxy that was slowly learning what humanity had learned long ago, that the measure of a people is not how much they can destroy it, is how much they choose to protect. The legends had returned, and they would never leave again.